Hey everyone, so in this video I'm going to go over sinusoidal regression, which is basically just scatter plots but with cosine and sine curves. So these are your steps for your calculator, the ones that are on the screen right now. These are your calculator steps to get the sine regression and the scatter plot to see what kind of regression you want. They're the same steps as any other regression. Basically you want to press stat on your calculator and then select edit. And you're going to enter the data into list 1 and list 2. You turn on the scatter plot by going to y equals and highlighting plot 1. You press zoom, select 9, which is zoom stat. Then to get your equation, you make sure that these steps are done first, because you can't get an equation without having the data in. And then you'll press stat and calc and select sine reg for this specific lesson. Now I do have all of these steps screenshotted, so if that didn't make much sense to you, I'm going to go through it with this example. So they tell you in this example that the average monthly temperatures in Celsius in New York City over a 30-year period are given in the table below. January represents T1, and they want you to create a scatter plot and determine what type of function would best represent the curve of best fit. So if you look over here, these are my calculator steps. So the first thing that I did was I pressed stat and edit. So number 1, press the button stat that's on the calculator, and then you're going to select edit. When you get there, you're going to move on to step 2, which allows you to enter the data into list 1 and list 2. Now, if you have data already in list 1 and list 2, simply highlight list 1 and press clear and then press the down arrow. It'll clear the list. But as you can see, I have all the data in for this problem. Now the next thing you're going to want to do is turn on your scatter plot, because our scatter plot will allow us to see what kind of regression we should use. So what we're going to do is we're going to press y equals, and we're going to make sure we highlight plot 1. This will enable the scatter plot feature, so when we allow our specific zoom window to be enabled, we'll be able to see our scatter plot. So this was step 3, turn on your plot. So what I mean about the proper zoom, for a scatter plot, you want to press zoom, the button zoom right here, and then select stat. This will create a statistics window so we can see the data plotted and analyze it. As you can see, it does look like a cosine curve or a sine curve. Remember, they're pretty much the same thing, just shifted. So we would select a sinusoidal regression for this because it's behaving like a trig function. Then what you're going to do to get your equation is you're going to press stat and go over to calc, and you're going to select C, which is sine reg. On the calculator I have on my iPad, I do not have that enabled, but you will have that enabled on your yellow calculator or whatever color it is from school. So those are your steps to getting all the data in, to getting your regression equation, and to look at the scatter plot. Now first off, the first thing they ask is what kind of regression should we use? And based off of this scatter plot, we should choose a sine regression, because this does look like a trend that will continue cyclically. So what I mean by cyclically is that since this is an average temperature over a year, you should remember that it will go up and then back down and then continue the pattern over and over again. So sine regression would be a good idea. Okay, so they want you to write an equation for the curve of best fit. You're going to get that from your calculator. You will see a sine bx plus c plus d when you press that stat, calc, and you select C, which is sine reg. You're going to then take the coefficients, the letters, and fill them in. So you're going to fill in these letters, and you're going to round to the nearest hundredth. So I had gotten 12.24 for my calculator, sine 0.52x minus 2.19 plus 12.83. They want you to determine the period of this function, so I'll use my period formula, which is 2 pi over b. The b value is this 0.52. I'm going to type this into my calculator, and I'm going to end up getting about 12.08. Remember, the definition of period is the length it takes to create one full cycle. So the 12.08 is very significant in this problem. Basically, it's telling us it takes, in context of the problem, which means what we're talking about, it takes about 12 months to complete one whole year's cycle of temperature changes. They then ask you what's the midline, and remember the midline is your D value. So what I need to do is I need to look at my equation and look for D. This is D, 12.83. So the midline is 12.83. What does this represent in context of the problem? Well, looking at my scatter plot, what the midline is it's this value that's cutting the graph perfectly halfway between the max and the min. So let's say it's about there. In this case, the y-axis is temperature, and the x-axis is months. So this midline is that middle temperature. It's actually considered an average because when you add and when you add the max and the min together and then divide it by 2, you'll get an average, which is about this midline. So what that value means, that 12.83, that is the average temperature in degrees Celsius over a year's period. So this is 12.83 degrees Celsius, which is the average yearly temperature. The last question they ask is what's the maximum and the minimum values of the function and what do they represent in context of the problem. So to get your max and min, remember you use D minus the absolute value of A, and the y max is D plus the absolute value of A. So I'm going to have 12.83 minus 12.24, which is my A value, up here, A, B, C, and D. 12.83 plus 12.24. So these are going to give us my max and min values of temperature. So this is 0.59 degrees Celsius, and this is 25.07 degrees Celsius. And these values represent 0.59 degrees Celsius and 25.07 degrees Celsius represent the highest and lowest temps. And that's it. That's how you do a sign regression. Again, let me just show you the steps one more time. If you want to write these down, this is how you get the calculator steps to create your own sign regression. I hope you do well with this lesson, and I'll see you soon.